Seren didn't know the wounded soldier bleeding on her doorstep was the most feared alpha in the realm. She didn't know he'd been hunting something far more dangerous than enemies when he collapsed against her door. And she definitely didn't know that the moment her healing hands touched his skin, she would ignite a bond that would make him burn kingdoms to keep her. All she knew was that the storm had knocked out the village lanterns. Her last patient had left an hour ago, and she wanted nothing more than to crawl into bed and sleep until the rain stopped. The healer's cottage was small, 2 rooms tucked behind the apothecary where she mixed remedies and set broken bones. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The only thing her mother had left her besides a warning she'd carried for 23 years. Never let them see what you can really do. She was banking the fire when the knock came. Not a knock, a thud. Heavy. Desperate. Serene grabbed the iron poker and approached the door slowly. Thornwick was a border village, too small to attract trouble but close enough to the Ashvale Mountains that trouble sometimes wandered in anyway. Wolves, bandits, deserters from the war that had raged for 3 years in the Eastern Territories. She opened the door to find a man crumpled on her threshold. He was massive, even folded in on himself. She could tell he'd tower over her standing. Dark hair plastered to his face by rain and what looked like blood. Leather armor slashed open across his ribs, the wound beneath still seeping. His hand was pressed against it, fingers red and trembling. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. They opened when the door creaked, pale amber, almost gold, catching the firelight from behind her like a predator's gaze in darkness. There was pain there, yes. But beneath it, something else. Something calculating, assessing. Even half dead, he was watching her like she was the threat. Please. His voice was a ragged scrape. I need help. Every instinct screamed at her to close the door. This wasn't a farmer who'd cut himself on a scythe or a child with a fever. This was a warrior, the kind who left bodies in their wake. But Seren was a healer. It was the only thing she'd ever been allowed to be. Can you stand? He tried. Failed. Blood dripped onto her floor. She wedged herself under his arm, staggering under his weight as she half-dragged him inside. He was burning hot, fever already setting in, and he smelled like iron and smoke and something wild, something that made her wolf blood stir in a way it never had. She lowered him onto the cot by the fire, already reaching for her supplies. Needle, thread, boiled water. The mundane tools of a mundane healer. But when she peeled back the leather to expose the wound, her heart hammered against her ribs. 3 deep gashes, claw marks. Not from any ordinary wolf. What did this to you? She whispered. His eyes found hers, and that amber gaze held a weight that made her hands falter. Something that's still coming. Seren's blood ran cold. What do you mean? Still coming. Stitch first. His jaw tightened as she pressed cloth to the wound. Talk after. She wanted to argue, wanted answers, but the blood wasn't stopping. Mundane tools, mundane methods. That's what she told herself as she threaded the needle, as she cleaned the gashes with steady hands that betrayed nothing. But the wound wasn't closing the way it should. She'd stitched 100 injuries, knife cuts, farming accidents, even a wolf bite once. They responded to pressure, to thread, to time. This wound seemed to fight her, the edges refusing to knit, the bleeding slowing but never stopping. Cursed. The word surfaced from her mother's old lessons. Some wounds are cursed. Only ashborn fire can cleanse them. No, she couldn't. She'd spent her entire life hiding what she was, suppressing the heat that lived in her palms, the gift that had gotten her mother killed when Seren was just 7 years old. She'd watched from the root cellar as they dragged her mother into the village square, had heard the accusations, witch, abomination, ashborn. The screaming had lasted hours. It's not working. The soldier's voice cut through her memories. He was watching her hands, his gaze too sharp for a man who should be losing consciousness. You know why. Seren's fingers stilled. I don't know what you mean. Your hands are shaking, not from fear, from restraint. You're holding something back. He reached up fast despite his wounds and caught her wrist. His grip was iron. I can feel it. The heat under your skin. She tried to pull away. Couldn't. I'm just a healer. A normal. There's nothing normal about you. His voice dropped, rough and certain. I've been tracking Ashbourne bloodlines for 3 years, hunting them. I know the signs. His thumb pressed against her pulse point. Elevated temperature, pupils that catch light wrong, and that smell, like embers and wild roses, all Ashbourne carry it. Your mother would have had it too. The world tilted. You didn't know her. No, but I know what she was. What you are. His grip loosened, not releasing but gentling. She was right to make you hide, Seren. The order to exterminate your kind came from the High Council itself. Every alpha in the realm was commanded to hunt the Ashbourne to extinction. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Then why aren't you killing me? Something flickered across his face. Exhaustion, maybe, or something harder to name. Because I just spent 3 years following orders, burning villages, executing families, watching children scream for mothers who were already ash. His eyes held hers. I'm done killing for them. That doesn't explain why you're here, in my village, on my doorstep. Because they're coming for you. His voice hardened. The thing that clawed me open, it was a scout. Part of a pack sent to find the last Ashbourne. They know you exist, Seren. They have your scent. He released her wrist. You have maybe 2 days before they reach Thornwick. Maybe less. Seren stood frozen, her mind racing. 23 years of hiding. 23 years of being invisible, ordinary, safe. Gone in a single night. Who are you? She breathed. The soldier sat up slowly, pain etched in every line of his body but his presence filling the room like a physical force. Kyle, Alpha of the Valdron pack. His eyes burned into hers. And I'm the only thing standing between you and a very painful death. Seren stumbled back, putting the table between them as if that flimsy barrier could protect her from an alpha. The stories about the Valdron pack were whispered even this far from the Eastern Territories. A warrior pack, brutal, undefeated. And their alpha, Kale the Oathless they called him, had never taken a mate. They said he'd carved his heart out years ago and replaced it with iron. They said he felt nothing. But the man watching her now didn't look like a monster. He looked exhausted, haunted. And something in his eyes when he said, I'm done killing for them, had cracked open a door she didn't want to examine. Why would you help me? Seren's voice came out steadier than she felt. You just admitted you've spent 3 years hunting my kind. Following orders. There's a difference. Not to the dead. Kale flinched. Just barely, but she caught it. No, not to the dead. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the rain hammering the shutters and the pop of the dying fire. Seren's mind raced through her options. Run. Where? She had no pack, no allies, and no money beyond the few coins villagers paid for her remedies. The Ashvale Mountains might hide her for a time, but winter was coming and she'd freeze before the hunters even found her. Stay and fight? She'd never thrown a punch in her life. The heat in her palms could heal, yes. But could it harm? Her mother had never taught her that. Had been killed before she could. What do you want from me? Seren asked finally. You didn't collapse on my doorstep by accident. You tracked me here. So what's the price of your protection? Kale's expression shifted. Respect? Maybe, for cutting through the pretense. The wound won't heal with normal methods. You know that. It needs Ashbourne fire. He gestured to his ribs. Cleanse the curse, and I'll get you out of Thornwick before the hunters arrive. I'll take you somewhere they'll never find you. And after? When I've healed you? When I've served my purpose? What then? You hand me over to the council? Collect whatever bounty they've placed on the last Ashbourne head? No bounty. His jaw tightened. The extermination order is unofficial. The council doesn't want anyone to know that Ashbourne still exist. It would make them look weak. They want you erased quietly. Completely. Before we continue, please take 2 seconds to like this video. Serene laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I'm supposed to trust an alpha who's been hunting my bloodline for 3 years. Trust that you'll protect me instead of delivering me to slaughter. You don't have to trust me. Kyle stood slowly, towering over her despite the wound still seeping through his ruined armor. You just have to decide whether dying here is better than taking a chance. He extended his hand, not demanding, offering. 7 days. That's how long it'll take to reach the Grey Mist Sanctuary in the Northern Territories. Neutral ground. No pack has jurisdiction there. He paused, his golden gaze holding hers. Heal me tonight. Travel with me for 7 days, and I'll deliver you to safety in Grey Mist, beyond the Council's reach. After that, you're free. You never have to see me again. 7 days. A lifetime or a death sentence. She couldn't tell which. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't. His eyes held hers, unwavering. But I'm offering it anyway. That has to count for something. Seren looked at his outstretched hand, at the blood still staining his fingers, at the raw, exhausted honesty in his face. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Trust no one, little star. But her mother was dead, and the hunters were coming. She took his hand. The moment Seren's fingers made contact with his, something stirred beneath her skin. A flicker of warmth that had nothing to do with her Ashbourne blood and everything to do with the man standing before her. She pulled her hand back quickly, too quickly. Cale's eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing. Sit, Seren ordered, gesturing to the cot. And remove what's left of that armor. I can't heal through leather. He obeyed without argument, which surprised her. She'd expected an alpha to bristle at commands, especially from someone like her. Packless, powerless, prey. But Kale simply unstrapped the ruined chest piece and let it fall, revealing a torso carved from years of war. Scars everywhere. Some old, silvered with time. Others newer, still pink and raised. And beneath them, muscles that spoke of violence as a way of life. But it was the fresh wound that demanded her attention. 3 jagged claw marks, still weeping dark blood, the edges blackened with curse rot. Seren knelt beside him, her heart racing. She hadn't used her fire in 16 years. Not since the night her mother died, when the grief had exploded out of her and scorched a perfect circle into the cellar floor. She'd been terrified of it ever since. This will hurt, she warned. I know. She placed her palms over the wound and closed her eyes. At first, nothing. Just the sticky warmth of blood and the rhythm of his breathing. Then she stopped fighting, stopped suppressing. Let the heat that lived in her core rise up through her chest, down her arms, into her hands. Her golden light bloomed between her fingers. Kale hissed through his teeth but didn't move, didn't pull away. The curse rot sizzled and burned away, replaced by new flesh knitting together beneath her palms. She could feel it, his body responding to her fire, cells regenerating, poison dissolving. But she could feel something else too, a thread, thin as spider silk, strong as iron chain. It stretched from somewhere deep in her chest and anchored itself to him, to his heartbeat, to his very essence. Her eyes flew open. Kale was staring at her, his expression wide with something she'd never expected to see on the face of a killer. Shock. And beneath it, recognition. What was that? Seren breathed, jerking her hands away. The wound was closed now, fresh pink skin where the gashes had been. But the thread remained, pulsing faintly in her awareness like a second heartbeat. Kyle didn't answer immediately. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his hands gripping the edge of the cot so hard the wood creaked. That wasn't just healing. His voice came out rough, fractured. "What did you do?" "I don't know." Panic clawed at her throat. It's never felt like. She couldn't finish. Couldn't name the thing now tethered between them. But Kale could. A bond. The word dropped like a stone into still water. "You initiated a mate bond." The room spun. "That's not possible. I wouldn't. It's not about choice." Kale's eyes burned into hers. "It's about compatibility, about souls recognizing each other." He stood abruptly, putting distance between them. "And apparently, yours just recognized mine." Serene's legs gave out. She caught herself on the table, knuckles white against the wood. "Break it." Her voice shook. "Whatever this is, undo it." "It doesn't work that way." "Then make it work that way." She was trembling now, fear and fury tangled together. "I didn't ask for this. I saved your life, and now I'm—" "What? Chained to you?" A shadow crossed Kale's face. Pain, maybe, or disappointment. "The bond doesn't chain you to anything. It's not a collar or a contract." He kept his distance, hands raised slightly like she was a wounded animal he didn't want to spook. "It's a connection, one that can be ignored, suppressed, even severed eventually, though that comes with consequences." "What consequences?" "Pain. For both of us. The kind that doesn't fade." Seren laughed bitterly. "So my choices are suffering or being bound to a stranger who hunted my people for sport?" "Not for sport." His voice hardened. "Never for sport." "Does the distinction matter to the dead?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to drown in. When Kale finally spoke, his voice had changed. Quieter. Heavier. "Do you know why they call me the Oathless?" Seren shook her head. "Because I broke every vow I ever made. To my father. To my pact. To the council that commands the realm." He moved to the window, staring out at the rain-soaked darkness. 3 years ago, the High Council ordered the extermination of the Ashborn. Said your bloodline was a threat. That your fire could level cities if left unchecked. Every alpha was commanded to hunt. His shoulders tensed. "I followed those orders, led my pack into villages just like this one. Watched families burn." He turned to face her, and the torment in his eyes stole her breath. 17 villages, 236 confirmed kills. Men, women, children. I counted every single one. Seren's stomach turned. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know who you're bound to. What I am. What I've done." He crossed back toward her slowly. "The Valdron pack is the most powerful in the Eastern Realm. I command 3,000 warriors. The Council fears me almost as much as they use me. And until I collapsed on your doorstep, I was their most obedient weapon." He stopped an arm's length away. "But I'm not their weapon anymore. I'm done following orders that require me to become a monster." His amber eyes burned into hers. "You didn't choose this bond, Seren. Neither did I. But I'm choosing what happens next. And I choose to protect you. Whether you want me to, or not." They left Thornwick before dawn. Seren had packed quickly. There was little to take. A change of clothes. Her mother's journal, filled with cramped handwriting she'd never been able to fully decipher. A small pouch of dried herbs and the coins she'd saved over the years. Everything else she left behind. The cottage. The apothecary. The life she'd built stitch by careful stitch for 16 years. Gone in a single night, just like her mother had warned. Kale led her through the forest on paths she didn't know existed. He moved silently despite his size, every step deliberate, and his eyes scanning the shadows with a predator's vigilance. The bond hummed faintly in her chest, a constant awareness of his presence that she couldn't seem to silence no matter how hard she tried. They walked for hours before he finally stopped at a ravine hidden by ancient oaks. "We'll rest here until nightfall." He gestured to a shallow cave carved into the rock face. "There's a stream nearby. Fresh water." Seren's legs ached, her lungs burned, and every muscle screamed for rest. But something else demanded her attention first. "You said the Valdron pack has 3,000 warriors. Where are they?" "Waiting." Kale crouched at the cave entrance, checking sightlines with practiced efficiency. "I sent word before I tracked you to Thornwick. They'll meet us at the Grey Mist border." "You planned this. All of it." "I planned to find you. To warn you. To offer protection." He glanced back at her. The bond wasn't part of the plan. She wanted to be angry, wanted to hold on to the fury that had sustained her through the long night's walk. But exhaustion was winning, dragging her down like stones in her pockets. Seren sank onto a flat rock near the cave's entrance, letting her pack slide to the ground. "What happens when we reach Grey Mist?" "Sanctuary. The Northern Territories are neutral ground. No pack has authority there. You'll be safe." "And you? What happens to you?" A flicker of emotion crossed his face, quickly masked. "I'll make sure you're settled, then I'll leave." The words shouldn't have stung. She barely knew this man. Didn't want to know him. He was a killer, a weapon, a monster by his own admission. But the bond pulsed warm in her chest, and some traitorous part of her whispered, "Don't go." "You should sleep." Kyle's voice cut through her thoughts. "I'll keep watch. You're still recovering. The wound is healed, thanks to you." He settled against the cave wall, positioning himself between her and the entrance. "Sleep, Seren. You're safe." She wanted to argue, but her body had other plans. She curled onto her side, using her pack as a pillow, and let her eyes close. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Kale's silhouette against the gray morning light, steady, watchful, immovable, like a guardian carved from stone. When she woke hours later, the sun had shifted to late afternoon gold. Something warm and heavy covered her shoulders. A cloak, she realized. His cloak. It smelled like pine and wood smoke, and something uniquely him. Kale sat exactly where she'd left him, sharpening a blade with slow, methodical strokes. "You gave me your cloak." Her voice came out sleep-rough. "You were cold. You could have woken me. You needed rest." He didn't look up from the blade. "We move again in an hour. There's food in my pack. Dried meat and bread. Eat." It wasn't a request, but it wasn't quite an order either. A gruff sort of caring that didn't match the monster he'd painted himself to be. Seren wrapped the cloak tighter around her shoulders and wondered when exactly she'd stop being afraid of him. The next 3 days blurred together in a rhythm of walking, resting, and carefully avoiding any topic that mattered. Kale spoke little, but Seren learned to read him anyway. The tension in his shoulders when they crossed open ground. The way his eyes tracked the tree line, always searching for threats. The subtle relaxation in his posture when they made camp, like a wolf finally settling after securing the perimeter. She learned other things too. He ate last. Always. Gave her the warmer sleeping spot without being asked. Woke before dawn to scout ahead, returning with fresh water and sometimes berries or nuts he'd foraged along the way. For a monster, he was remarkably thoughtful. On the third night, camped in a hollow between 2 hills, Seren finally asked the question that had been burning in her chest. "The 236. She stared into the fire, unable to look at him. "Do you remember their faces?" Silence stretched so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Every single one." His voice was hollow. "I see them when I close my eyes. Hear them when it's quiet. They're the reason I stopped sleeping years ago." Seren finally looked at him. The firelight carved shadows into his face, emphasizing the exhaustion she'd somehow stopped noticing. How do you live with it? I don't. I just keep moving. He poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling upward. That's why I never took a mate. Never let anyone close. I didn't deserve that kind of peace. Still don't. The bond ached in her chest, his pain bleeding through the connection they shared. My mother used to say that guilt without action is just self-indulgence. Seren pulled her knees to her chest. That the dead don't need our suffering. They need us to do better. Kale's eyes lifted to hers. Your mother sounds like she was wise. She was. And brave. And they killed her anyway. Seren's throat tightened. I was 7. Hid in the root cellar while they dragged her to the square. I could hear everything. Every accusation, every scream. And I just hid. Like a coward. You survived. His voice was fierce. That's not cowardice. That's strength. It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like betrayal. Like I let her die so I could live. Kale moved then, slowly, giving her time to pull away. He settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The warmth of him seeped through the space between them. When I was 14, my father took me on my first hunt. Not for game, for enemies. A rival pack had killed my mother, and he wanted blood. Kyle's jaw tightened. He made me watch while he slaughtered them. Every last one. Then he put a blade in my hand and told me to finish the wounded. Seren's heart clenched. Did you? Yes? The word was gravel. I was terrified. Sick. But I did it because he was my alpha, and I thought that's what strength looked like. Obedience without question. Violence without mercy. He turned to look at her, and the raw honesty in his eyes stole her breath. It took me 20 years to realize he was wrong. That real strength isn't blind obedience. It's knowing when to stop. When to say no. When to choose something different. His hand lifted, hesitated, and then gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. You survived, Seren. You hid your gift, built a life, and helped people heal. That's not betrayal. That's everything your mother would have wanted for you. Tears burned behind her eyes. You don't know that. I know that any mother who taught her daughter to survive did it because she wanted that daughter to live. Not just exist. Live. Fully. Freely. His thumb traced her cheekbone, featherlight. You've been hiding for 16 years. Maybe it's time to stop. That invisible thread between them pulled taut, warm, and insistent. Seren felt it reaching for him, felt her walls crumbling despite every instinct screaming to rebuild them. I don't know how. Her voice cracked. I've been invisible so long I don't remember what it feels like to be seen. Then let me show you. Kale's forehead dropped to rest against hers. Let me see you. All of you. The fear, and the fire, and everything in between. His breath was warm against her lips. The space between them shrank to nothing, but he didn't close it. I won't take what isn't offered freely, he murmured. Whatever happens between us, it's your choice. Always. Seren's heart raced against her ribs. Every logical part of her brain screamed to pull back, to maintain the walls that had kept her safe for so long. But the bond whispered something different. Home. He feels like home. She closed the distance. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, a question more than a statement. Then Kale's hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and the question became an answer. He kissed her like she was precious, like she was the first good thing he'd touched in years, and he was terrified of breaking her. His other hand found her waist, pulling her closer but never demanding, always giving her room to retreat. She didn't retreat. Serene's fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt, anchoring herself as the world dissolved into sensation. The scratch of stubble against her chin, the taste of wood smoke and something sweeter beneath. The rumble of a groan in his chest when she pressed closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cale rested his forehead against hers again. His eyes were closed, his expression almost pained. I didn't plan this. His voice was rough as gravel. Any of it. You were supposed to be a mission. Find the last Ashbourne, warn her, and deliver her to safety. That was it. And now? His eyes opened, amber burning in the firelight. Now I can't imagine walking away from you, and that terrifies me more than any battle I've ever fought. Seren's heart stuttered. You said you'd leave, after Grey Mist. You said, I know what I said. His thumb traced her jaw. I thought it was the right thing. Give you freedom. Let you build a life without a blood-soaked warrior haunting your doorstep. He laughed bitterly. But the bond doesn't care about what's right. And neither does this thing in my chest that stops beating every time you look at me. Cale. You don't have to say anything. He pulled back slightly, putting space between them that felt like miles. The bond can be suppressed, ignored, eventually severed. I meant that. If you want me gone after this, I'll go. I'll endure whatever pain comes with the breaking. I won't trap you. The echo of his earlier words struck something deep in her chest. I won't trap you. Not with duty, not with magic, not with anything. He meant it. She could feel the truth of it through the bond, his absolute commitment to her choice, even if that choice destroyed him. What if I don't want you to go? Hope flickered across his face, quickly smothered. Then I'd stay. For as long as you'd have me. But Seren. He caught her hands in his grip gentle but urgent. You need to be sure. I'm not a good man. I've done things that can't be forgiven. Choosing me means choosing all of that. The blood, the guilt, the enemies who'll hunt us both. I know. Do you? His eyes searched hers. Because I need you to understand. If we do this, if we let the bond settle fully, I won't be able to let you go. Not because the magic won't allow it, but because I won't survive it. You'll own every broken piece of me, Seren, and I'm terrified of what happens if you decide those pieces aren't worth keeping. The vulnerability in his voice shattered something inside her. This man, this warrior who commanded armies and bore the weight of 236 souls, was afraid, not of battle or death or pain, but of her, of not being enough for her. I'm terrified too. Seren squeezed his hands. I've spent my whole life running from connections, hiding so deep that no one could ever find me or hurt me. And now you found me anyway. And instead of wanting to run, I want to stay. Seren, ask me again. She cut him off. At the end of all this, when we reach Grey Mist and the hunters are dealt with and I've had time to breathe, ask me if I want you to stay, and I'll give you my answer. Cale's expression shifted, hope warring with caution. You're not saying no. I'm saying I need time, to be sure, to know this isn't just the bond or the danger or the fear talking. She lifted their joined hands and pressed her lips to his scarred knuckles. But I'm also saying that right now, in this moment, I don't want to be anywhere else. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise after endless night. I can live with that. They reached the edge of Valdron territory on the 5th day. Cale had sent a scout ahead the night before. A lean, silver-haired wolf named Torin, who'd appeared from the shadows without warning, nearly giving Seren a heart attack. The two alphas had spoken in low voices while she pretended to sleep, catching fragments of words that made her blood run cold. Council enforcers, Commander Draven, 2 days behind, maybe less. She didn't ask Cale about it that night, but the next morning she could feel the tension radiating from him like heat from a forge. Who is Commander Draven? Cale's jaw tightened. He trained me, turned me into the weapon the council needed, and he's the one they sent to clean up my mess. Your mess being me? My mess being my defection. He helped her over a fallen log, his grip lingering on her hand. I abandoned my post. Refused orders. That alone is punishable by death. But taking you, protecting the last Ashborn instead of eliminating her, that's treason of the highest order. Seren's stomach dropped. They'll kill you. They'll try. His expression was granite. Draven is ruthless, efficient, and utterly loyal to the Council. He won't stop until we're both dead. Then we need to move faster. Reach Grey Mist before. We won't make it. Kyle stopped walking, turning to face her. Torrin's report confirmed it. Draven's pack is moving faster than expected. They'll intercept us before we reach neutral ground. Fear clawed at her throat. So what do? We stop running. His eyes burned with something fierce. My warriors are a day's march from here, 3,000 strong. If we can reach them before Draven reaches us, we'll have a fighting chance. And if we can't? Kyle stepped closer, his hands framing her face with devastating gentleness. Then I'll hold them off while you run. I'll buy you as much time as I can. You head north. Don't stop. Don't look back. And you find Grey Mist. Tell them Kale of Valdron sent you. They'll protect you. No. The word ripped from her chest. I'm not leaving you to die. Seren, no. She gripped his wrists, holding him in place. You don't get to sacrifice yourself for me. Not after everything. Not when I... Her voice cracked. I won't watch someone else I care about die while I hide. A spark of wonder crossed his expression. Someone you care about? Don't make me say it. Not yet. Not like this. Tears burned her eyes. Just promise me you won't throw your life away. Promise me we'll figure this out together. Kale was silent for a long moment. She felt his fear bleeding through the connection they shared, raw and unguarded. I spent 3 years trying to die, he said quietly. Every battle, every mission, I threw myself at death hoping it would finally take me, hoping the guilt would end. His thumb brushed her cheek. Then I found you. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I want to live. Then live. Seren pressed her forehead to his chest. Fight with me. Not for me. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close. Together. He murmured against her hair. We face this together. Somewhere in the distance a wolf howled. Then another. And another. Kale's head snapped up, his body going rigid. They're here. The attack came at dusk. They'd made it to a narrow canyon, high walls on either side offering limited protection, but also limited escape. Kale had hoped to use it as a bottleneck, force Draven's forces to come at them in smaller numbers. But Draven had anticipated him. Kale. The voice echoed off the canyon walls, smooth and cold as glacier water. Did you really think you could outrun me? Commander Draven emerged from the shadows at the canyon's mouth, flanked by at least 40 warriors. He was older than Seren had imagined, silver-streaked hair, a face carved from harsh angles, but his movements held the fluid deadliness of a man half his age. Driven. Kale pushed Seren behind him, his body a wall between her and danger. This doesn't have to end in blood. It ended in blood the moment you chose a witch over your duty. Draven's eyes flickered to Seren with contempt. The last Ashborn. She doesn't look like much. She's under my protection. Your protection means nothing. You're a traitor. Your pack is scattered, and the council wants her dead. Draven drew his blade, the steel catching the dying light. Stand aside, Kale. Die with honor, at least. The only one dying today is you. Draven laughed. Bold words from a man outnumbered 40-2. Who said anything about 2? The howl that split the air came from above. Seren's head snapped up in time to see dark shapes pouring over the canyon rim. Wolves, dozens of them, their eyes gleaming in the twilight. They flowed down the rock face like a living avalanche, and at their head was Torin, his silver fur blazing. The Valdron pack had arrived. Chaos erupted. Wolves clashed in a fury of teeth and claws, the canyon filling with snarls and screams. Kale shifted mid-stride, his human form dissolving into something massive and dark. A black wolf the size of a horse, eyes blazing gold with killing fury. Seren pressed herself against the canyon wall, pulse racing. She was useless here. No combat training, no weapons. Just a healer with fire in her veins and no idea how to use it. Then she saw Draven cutting through the battle toward her. He moved like death itself, his blade carving a path through anyone who stood in his way. Two of Kale's warriors fell before they could even raise their defenses. Then three more. And Kale was too far away, locked in combat with a massive gray wolf, unable to break free. Draven smiled as he approached. The Alpha's little pet. Let's see what makes you so special. He lunged. Seren's hands came up instinctively, not to shield, but to push, and the fire that had lived dormant in her blood for 16 years finally answered. Golden flames erupted from her palms. Draven screamed, staggering back, his sword arm blackened and smoking, but he didn't fall. He snarled through the pain, switching the blade to his other hand and charged again. This time, Seren didn't hesitate. She let the fire consume her fear, let it rise and rise until it felt like she might burn from the inside out. Then she released it. A wall of ashborn flame exploded outward, sweeping across the canyon floor like a living thing. It didn't touch Kale's wolves. Somehow, impossibly, it curved around them like water around stones. But Draven's warriors weren't so lucky. They scattered, howling. Those too slow to flee caught in flames that burned with 16 years of suppressed rage. Draven alone remained standing, shielded by some artifact around his neck that glowed with protective runes. But his forces were broken, fleeing into the night, and his eyes held something that hadn't been there before. Fear. This isn't over. He backed toward the canyon mouth, clutching his ruined arm. The council will send more. They'll never stop hunting you. Then tell them to send their best. Seren's voice came out strange, layered, powerful, not quite her own. Because the next ones won't run fast enough. Draven disappeared into the darkness. The battle was over. Kale shifted back to human form, crossing to her in 3 strides. His hands found her face, her shoulders, and her arms, checking for injuries, assuring himself she was real. You're alive. His voice shook. You're alive, and you just... I don't know what I did. Seren's legs buckled, the fire's aftermath hitting her all at once. I've never... It just happened. Kale caught her before she hit the ground, pulling her against his chest. Around them, the Valdron pack was regrouping, tending to wounded, securing the canyon. But Kale saw only her. You saved us. He pressed his lips to her forehead. You, magnificent, terrifying woman, you saved us all. They reached Grey Mist 2 days later. The sanctuary was nothing like Seren had imagined. She'd pictured walls, guards, cold stone fortifications. Instead, she found a valley nestled between snow-capped peaks, filled with wildflowers and wooden lodges that seemed to grow from the earth itself. Neutral ground, Kale explained as they descended the winding path. No pack holds dominion here. It's sacred. A place for healing, for refugees, for those who need shelter from the storms of the realm. Seren breathed in the clean mountain air and felt something loosen in her chest. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, she felt safe. The elders of Grey Mist welcomed them without question. They'd heard of Kale's defection, of the Ashbourne's survival, of the battle in the canyon. Word traveled fast among the packs, and the story of golden fire that spared allies while consuming enemies had already become legend. They gave Seren a cottage at the valley's edge, small but warm, with a view of the mountains and a garden already blooming with herbs she recognized. You could rebuild your practice here, Kale said, standing in the doorway while she explored. The sanctuary always needs healers. It's perfect. She ran her fingers over the worn wooden table, imagining mortar and pestle, dried herbs hanging from the rafters. I could actually have a life here. Yes. The tension in his voice made her turn. Kale stood rigid, his expression carefully blank, in a way she'd learned meant he was hiding something painful. It's been 7 days, he said quietly. Our agreement is fulfilled. You're safe now, under the sanctuary's protection. I've done what I promised. Seren's heart clenched. You're leaving. That was the deal. He didn't meet her eyes. 7 days. Then you never have to see me again. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me. She crossed the room, stopping just short of touching him. Look at me, Kale. He didn't. Please. His eyes finally lifted, and the anguish in them took her breath away. He expected her to let him go. Expected rejection, abandonment, the pain of a broken bond. He'd already resigned himself to suffering. And something about that assumption made her angry. You promised to ask me again, she said, at the end of all this. You said you'd ask if I wanted you to stay. His throat worked. Seren, ask me. Silence stretched between them. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Do you want me to stay? She answered by kissing him. Not soft this time, not tentative. She kissed him with everything she had, every fear she'd conquered, every wall she'd torn down, every piece of herself she'd hidden for 16 years. And he kissed her back like a drowning man finding air. When they broke apart, both trembling, she pressed her hand over his heart. I love you. The words came easily, finally. I didn't want to. Tried not to. But somewhere between the blood oath and the battle and you giving me your cloak while I slept, I fell in love with you. Kale's breath caught. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Kale of Valdron. I choose you. All of you. The blood, the guilt, the enemies, everything. I choose you. He pulled her close, his whole body shaking. I love you too. His voice cracked. I've loved you since you healed me with shaking hands and defiant eyes. I just didn't know what to call it. Call it ours. Seren smiled against his chest. Call it home. They bonded under the summer moon, 3 months later. Grey Mist tradition required a ceremony at midnight, when the veil between worlds was thinnest and bonds forged would last beyond death itself. The entire valley gathered. Valdron warriors, sanctuary residents, even a few refugees who'd trickled in seeking shelter. Seren wore white linen threaded with gold, her hair loose around her shoulders, a crown of wildflowers woven by children who'd adopted her as their unofficial healer. She'd gained weight since arriving at Grey Mist, the hollow-cheeked exhaustion of her former life replaced by something healthier, happier, and whole. Kale wore black, as always, but his expression held none of the darkness that had haunted him when they'd first met. He smiled now, laughed with his warriors, slept through the night with Seren curled against his chest, the nightmares finally quieting. He still counted the dead, still carried the weight of 236 souls, but they'd learned together, that guilt didn't have to mean punishment. That redemption came through living better, not dying broken. The elder who performed the ceremony was ancient, her voice carrying across the silent valley like wind through leaves. Do you choose this woman? This bond? This life intertwined with hers until the stars themselves burn out? Kale's eyes never left Seren's face. I choose her. Today. Tomorrow. Every day the gods see fit to give me. And do you choose this man? This bond? This life intertwined with his until the stars themselves burn out? Seren smiled, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. I choose him, the warrior, the protector, the man who collapsed on my doorstep and changed everything. Then by the old laws and the new, I bind you, heart to heart, soul to soul, fire to fire. When they kissed, golden light flared between them, the bond finally settling fully, completely, irrevocably. The crowd cheered, wolves howled at the moon, and somewhere in the chaos, Torrin started a drinking song that would continue until dawn. Later, much later, they lay tangled together in their cottage, moonlight spilling through the window. "Tell me something," Seren murmured, tracing the scars on his chest. "Something I don't know." Kale considered for a moment. "When I was dying on your doorstep, I thought it was finally over. Thought I'd just fade away. Another casualty of a war that should never have been fought." His arms tightened around her. "Then you opened the door, and I looked into your eyes and thought, not yet. Just one more day." One more day turned into forever. It did. He pressed a kiss to her hair. "You saved me, Seren. Not just my body. Everything. You gave me a reason to stop running from death and start running toward life. You saved me too." She lifted her head to look at him. "I was hiding so deep I'd forgotten what sunlight felt like. You dragged me back into the world, terrifying and beautiful as it is." She smiled. "Fair trade." He laughed, low and warm. "Fair trade." Outside, the celebration continued. But in their small cottage at the edge of the valley, Kale and Seren had already found everything they needed. She'd healed a wounded stranger expecting nothing but danger. Instead, she'd found a warrior willing to burn the realm for her, and gentle enough to let her choose whether she wanted to stay. She'd chosen. And as sleep claimed them both, wrapped in each other and the bond that pulsed warm between their hearts, Seren realized the truth her mother had never gotten to teach her. Some fires don't destroy. Some fires forge something new from the ashes, and this fire, their fire, was only beginning. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people hear these stories.